In days gone by, Gower was renowned for shipwrecks, wrecking and smuggling. Stories from shipwrecked sailors brought ashore to barrels of rum found and hidden from excisemen are a few of the gems still kept alive by the families that lived to tell the tale.
We don't know much about him really, do we, except...
No, none of the children seem to talk about him very much, but I do remember a lady coming into the post office where I worked in Penmain, saying that when she was a little girl in Oxford, she could remember him coming home, and there was big excitement up in Oxford Green, and she remembered he had a lovely gold chain with a gold watch, and he was very smartly dressed, and everybody was coming out to have a look at him.
He came back in 1925, having been away a good 20 years, and it was just before my Bampy and my Nana got married. So he was back for the wedding.
Kate's great-grandfather, Conrad August Knudsen, was a ship's carpenter from Norway. He was on the Merkur when it ran aground at Slade in 1879.
Whenever I introduce myself, I usually add a little bit that actually my great-grandfather was shipwrecked at Oxford. And the story goes...
In 1969, when you were a baby, and I took you down to the Gower show in the pram, this old gentleman came up to us and said, did I know that he remembered the people being brought ashore. The villagers had made a human chain. They were all suffering from hypothermia, and they were distributed amongst the villagers in Oxford and Slade, I think. And well, it would be your great-grandfather was put in bed between the farmer's two daughters to warm him up, which he must have done.
Yeah.
They say, in every story there's a grain of truth. So is it possible then that this next story started at Rosilly on the wreck Renee in 1886?
Quite a deadly looking thing, isn't it? Fair weight on this, yeah. But I suppose when it's on a gun, it's more balanced then, wouldn't it? This bayonet, a French bayonet, was taken off a shipwreck in the neighbouring farm of West Pilton, up the road opposite us. There was a commotion in the yard in about the 1890s, and the farmer that was there then got up and in the middle of the night, and there was a sailor brandishing this sword or bayonet about. So he took it off him. And then in his sale, that made a farm sale a few years later, my great-grandfather bought it in the farm sale. And it's been in Kimley-Moor ever since. So that's the history of this sword, and I've still got it here now.
From ships that came aground in thick fog, and those caught on rocks in heavy storms, there was another type of wrecking, one that involved a more man-made intervention, a lantern.
There were certainly wreckers that happened in Gower and along the coast, where people would be, enticed, the boats would be enticed onto the rocks, and people would take the spoils of that. But in terms of the smuggling, there would have been lots and lots of opportunities. And though I don't know of any particular stories that are linked to my family, it is a bit ironic that my great-grandfather, my Conrad, was wrecked or shipwrecked at Oxwich Point at Slade there, and the villagers seem to know how to rescue them. To form that human chain. So whether it was bringing people ashore or goods that were on the boats, because when you look at the history of the Gower coast and you see the number of shipwrecks that are there, you do wonder, is that how people made their living over the years?
John Tugger, The Beaches Farm, Horton, Gower.
So your auntie then,
Yes.
was it her telling you the stories of
Yes.
when
Yes.
she was...
Yes.
Yeah.
Auntie Doris from Overton used to go round down to Overton wrecking, and when the shipwrecks would come in, they had oranges and lemons and everything, and used to go home very pleased as punch, and saving all the wreckage wood to light fires in the house and keep it warm.
Where was she telling you this? Was she sat here or...?
Yes, she sat here in the kitchen table. She used to come over once a week with her husband, Uncle Trevor, and we'd sit down and she'd tell me all these stories, and I was thrilled to bits to hear them all.
So she used to go out with a lamp, didn't she?
She used to go out to the lamp, yes, she used to go out to the lamp. Her mother and father would take her, Uncle Cyril and Auntie Louie. They were born over in Overton, and they'd take her down with a lantern to see what was what.
And what was the lantern for?
Lantern for to see, to get people to come in, the shipwreck to come in, sailors to come in, they think of the land, and they'd come in and then they'd get shipwrecked and they'd get all the goods from the ships.
And was all of the village then, were they all involved?
The village were all involved then. They'd all come up and share the spoils out.
So did lots of people go down with a lantern then, or would it be one or two?
One or two were down with a lantern, not a lot.
And how old was she then doing that?
About 10ish, I think. Yes.
So how did she feel? Like, was she scared or excited or...?
Excited, very excited. What she was doing, she thrilled to bits with it. And she loved Overton Mere.
Did she feel bad though? Because people got hurt, didn't they?
When you're young, you don't worry about things like that, do you? So we oldies worried about things like that.
So they never knew what ships they were going to wreck then?
No, they didn't know.
Just whatever on the day?
Whatever came along, they just wrecked them.
So how, would there be a particular time that they would go down or?
Or the evening tide, like in the evening, and depend on the tides. That's what they'd watch and they'd know what was coming round then.
And what was it about the evening tide?
Whether high tides or low tides. That's what they would sort of watch. When it was coming high tides, the water would be coming in, and then more chance of a ship getting wrecked. It bring the shipping closer to the rocks, like. And then they'd shipwreck and get the goodies.
And that's what the lantern then?
Yes. Drew the ships in. They were thinking they were safe, like, and they'd get shipwrecked instead.
On one particular day, they went down and they found a casket, a barrel, and they didn't know what was in this barrel, but everything that came on the beach was brought back that they thought could have been of some value. So they brought this barrel back up to the house, and nobody really knew what to do with it. And should we open it? Could there be something dangerous in it? So eventually, my grandfather had the courage to take the bung out, and they had a smell. It didn't smell too bad, and they all looked at each other and thought, let's dip it. So they put something in it, dipped it, put their finger in it, and they looked at each other and said, it's rum. It was clearly a casket of naval rum that had come off a ship, probably a naval ship, as they all carried their own rum. And because they knew this was contraband, it wasn't allowed. They should have declared it and handed it in, which they duly didn't. They collected from various farms in the area as many receptacles as they could, and they were all filled with rum. And as they knew, they were all terrified that the customs officials would come down, they hid the rum in every conceivable place they could that they didn't think would be found. So it was in bottles in duck ponds, it was in sheds, it was in cow stalls, it was in the attic. The rum went everywhere, and everybody enjoyed the rum. So they went far and wide. Rum was the best foraged item they ever had.